Okay, here we go. Study session. Last Beowulf test. I tell you what, I'm super ready for this one. You guys better show up. I got all my study guides, boop, 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 article, timeline. Doot, 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 doot. By the way, I put this on the weblog, the timeline thing I was talking about last time. All my notes from the film series. Hey, Brittany. Guess what? Bonus. I made some vocabulary study cards that I can throw up on the screen to test you. Party! What snack you got tonight, Brittany? What's your snack? I have to fix this so that it shows all the live chat. I had to get a healthy snack. I felt like I was promoting bad habits by always having candy snacks. So I have dried fruit and nuts tonight. It's good for you. Okay, does everybody have all their study stuff together? Study stuff together. Macaroni and cheese. That sounds more like dinner than a snack. I don't know. Got my book. Got everything laid out here, ready to go. Got my water. Oh, where should we start? Any suggestions about where you want to start tonight? Or we can do like I did on, where's that? We can do like I did on Tuesday and just go through the sections and then, you know, the article. Unless there's suggestions of places where you want to start today. I don't really like the lag between me talking and you guys hearing. I think it's like several seconds. It's awkward. I guess we can start with section 3 if you like. Do you want to start on section 3? Brittany's there. I don't know who else is there. There's 2 other people. Lurkers. Pepper is here. He doesn't look very happy though. I'll show you Pepper in case you're watching this later. Let's see. He's down on the floor right there, sitting by the door. I don't think he wants to be on camera. He's like, don't film me, it's not a good look right now. Okay. You want to start with vocab while we wait for people to show up if they do? I made a whole bunch of vocabulary cards. Or section 3. What do y'all think? Start with vocab? Do you want to? What's the best way to do this? I'm thinking I can show you a word. And then I give you a second to try to think of what it means. Yes. I'm assuming you mean vocabulary is good. Okay. So I made a bunch of vocabulary cards. We can do a little bit of this and then we'll go to the study stuff and then I'll come back to vocab, like we'll mix it in. How about that? All right, I'm going to hold up a word and then I will give you a second to guess the meaning on your own and then I will tell you the meaning and the page number so that you can go to it if you want to. I kind of started at the beginning of section 3 on page 131 and I just kind of like looked for words that I thought I might put on a test words that you might need to know. It's not all of the words, but I probably did, I don't know, 30 words. So what if I just use these when I'm writing the test? I don't know. All right, so the first word is bon. Bon. Guess that meaning on your own. A bon is a fort. On page 135, you will see that it's mentioned. Oh man. Inside his bon, he was dispensing rings, so it's a fort. Hold on, I got a tweet because I'm super popular. Wendy wants to know. Okay. How do you ask questions? If you're signed in to the video, there's our box for live chat. It's in the bottom right, right? I think so. On mine, it's in the bottom right. Okay, another word. The next word is hail. H-A-L-E. It's on page 135 also. After Higelac had offered greetings to his loyal thane in lofty speech, he and his kinsman, that hale survivor, sat face to face. Hail. Hail means healthy. You can kind of remember that. It's sort of spelled like healthy. I don't know. Next word, also on page 135, hankered. Hankered. He hankered to know every tale the sea Geats had to tell. Hankered. Hankered means wished or longed for. Like, I hankered for some macaroni and cheese. Next, regalia. On page 139. Regalia. Danes are at the table being entertained, honored guests in glittering regalia. Regalia is splendid official clothing. Graduation gown is regalia. Also on page 139, burnished. Burnished ring mail that was their host's birthright, looted when the Heathobards could no longer wield their weapons in the shield clash. Burnished. Page 139. It means polished, like armor. We'll do one more of these and then we'll get to study section 3. Rankle is on page 141. Rankle. Then on both sides of the oath-bound lords will break the peace, a passionate hate will build up in Ingeld, and love for his bride will falter in him as the feud rankles. Rankle means to continue an annoyance. Rankle. Okay. Let's go to, we'll do some more vocab in a little bit. Let's go to section 3. You have your study guide for section 3. It's the one with the dragon on it. Today's snack is, in case you missed it, dried fruits and nuts. It was brought to my attention that my snack choices were not healthy and bad example for the young people of America. All right, looking at the study guide for section 3, are there any questions that you'd like me to talk about or any of the characters at the top? You can bet on the test that any character that's listed at the top of study guide 3 or 4 will be on the test. If they're important enough for me to put on the study guide, then they're important enough to be on the test. So go ahead and chime in with whatever section 3 question you have. La la la, 7 watching. I need to know what questions you want me to talk about from the section 3 study guide or characters. I'm not just going to sit here and talk about all of them, so. The first one's about the Shope and how the Shope uses several techniques to indicate. Oh, okay, Brittany, thank you very much. Section 4, question 4, identify the Song of the Last Man. In what ways is this passage both a flashback and foreshadowing? All right, Song of the Last Man is going to be on page, I have it marked in my book, page 153. If you have your book there, page 153 is the Song of the Last Man. The Song of the Last Man is what the guy sings who puts the treasure into the cave where the dragon eventually lives. And the reason that he's called the last man is because he's the last one who's alive of his people. So remember how we talked about that the treasures that these people had was their monetary system. The only way that they had to pay people things and barter was through treasure and items. They didn't have what you'd call like a monetary system of bills and coins and things like that. So the last man is singing this song on page 153 and 155 about how this is the only remaining thing of his people. He's the last person alive of his clan, which is a sad thing. And if you watch the videos, one of the things that these ancient Anglo-Saxons feared the most. So he says on page 153, it's not really a song, it's just his grief. He's speaking to the earth as he's putting the last of the treasure into the earth. He says, now, earth, hold what earls once held, and heroes can no more. It was mined from you first by honorable men. My own people have been ruined in war. One by one they went down to death, looked their last on sweet life in the hall. I am left with nobody to bear a sword or burnish plated goblets. Hey, burnish was just one of our vocabulary words. Light bulb moment. So it goes on, and he sings about how he's got this treasure, but it's no good to anybody, and he's burying it as the last survivor of his people. Why is that foreshadowing? Because the dragon will end up living there, and Beowulf will get in his last battle because of this treasure that this guy stowed away. Why is it flashback? Because this is looking back to the time when the treasure was set forth inside the cave. Hi, Aaron. Hathkin kills Haribald, or is it the other way around? So you might want to make a note in the last part of your book. That's where I keep it straight, on the little family tree in the back. So Hathkin kills Haribald in an archery accident. So you're correct. Hathkin becomes king, but he's killed in a battle with the Swedes. And then Hardred becomes king. He's the son of Higelac, but he also dies in battle, and then Beowulf becomes king. Those characters are only really important in terms of showing how the throne passed from Higelac to Beowulf. It's pretty much the only reason that those characters are important. I mean, they're the brothers and the son of Higelac, but mainly that's just to show how the throne transferred down to Beowulf. If you're just joining us, we're on section 3 study guide. I also have some vocab word cards that I made to help you out. So every once in a while we'll stop and do 4 or 5 vocabulary words to help you. Or I'll do that to fill in while people are looking up questions to ask me. So is there anything else from Study Guide 3 that you'd like for me to go over? Okay, sounds like the perfect time for some vocab. So the next word is accoutrement. It's a French word as it sounds. Accoutrement is on page 143. What I've been doing is reading the passage that the word comes from. And this is kind of low tech with these little cards, but not now seemed like it would work. Page 143. He had this roomy pouch. This is where Beowulf is telling Hygelac about his adventures with Grendel. He had this roomy pouch, a strange accoutrement, intricately strung and hung at the ready, a rare patchwork of devilishly fitted dragon skins. Accoutrement means accessory or gear. Ooh, question 2. All right. As we are introduced to Queen Hyde on page 137, a digression tells of another queen, Modthryth, on page 137. Modthryth. They use Modthryth to contrast with Hyde. Hyde is Hygelac's wife, the queen of the Geats, and she is extremely kind and benevolent. But in order to describe her, they talk about her opposite, Queen Modthryth, who was so horrible she used to have men killed for looking at her. And in contrast to that, Hyde was a delightful queen who was helpful and kind to all of her people. So the foil character is where you have 2 characters that have something in common, but otherwise are opposite. So what they have in common is they're both queens, but the opposite factor is that one was evil and cruel and the other one was kind and benevolent. So they're trying to describe Hyde by contrasting her with Modthryth. I feel like there's not a lot of women in the story, so it's, you know, good to at least know who they are in the story, even if they're characterized in an evil way. All right, well, I'm waiting for the next question. Or do you want to move on to section 4? I feel like section 4 we spent a lot of time on in class because we did that group stuff where everybody shared out their answers and we blabbed for a while. So I don't know. If there are any, I'll give it another minute to see if there's any other questions on section 3. Lavish is on page 143. I got lavish rewards from the Lord of the Danes for my part in battle, beaten gold and much else. Once morning came and we took our places at the banquet table. Lavish means luxurious or, you know, sort of overboard lux. Page 143, lavish. Lavish can also be a verb. As it's used in the book, it's an adjective, but you can also lavish presents on someone. Torrent is page 145. She had fled with the corpse and taken refuge beneath torrents on the mountain. She is Grendel's mother. The corpse is Ashera. She had fled with the corpse and taken refuge beneath torrents on the mountain. Torrent is a sudden outpouring. Probably it's because there's like waterfalls near the water where she lives. Grendel's mother. Torrent. All right, let's move on to section 4. Study guide for section 4. Mine's blue. I don't know, something happened with the paper in the copier. Are there any characters at the top or study questions 1 through 10 that you would like for me to go over on section 4? Wendy, did you make it in here? I don't know. She was tweeting me that she was having trouble getting in, and I don't know if she made it. All right. List for me what what questions you want me to talk about from the Section 4 study guide. Anybody? More vocab? Tarn. Also page 145. I went to my encounter with the terrormonger at the bottom of the tarn. If it's on page 145, just like the last word, then it goes with torrents, right? A torrent is an outpouring of water, sudden outpouring. A tarn is a river. Where she lives is a bunch of water, Grendel's mother. Gorget. Oh, I see Brittany question, and let me do gorget. Gorget and torque are the same thing. Both of those words show up in the last two sections. Torque is also in an earlier section. Page 147. Wendy, if you're watching, just send me an email of the question that you want to ask. We'll just do it that way if you're having trouble to log in. You know, I'll open my email right here, and if you can't do it in the window, then I'll just read them. Okay, so a gorget is a neck piece, like a metal neck piece or a necklace or scarf made of gold. Beowulf gives a gorget to hide, one of the presents that he gets from Hrothgar. Okay, question 9 on study guide 4. This one. What are Weloff's final thoughts about Beowulf? Okay. Weloff only really comes out in section 4. He gives a speech on 177, but that particular question is asking about later, after Beowulf dies. So I think the best place to look for the answer to number 9 on section 4 would be page 93 is where he gives the shirkers a speech. I'm just looking for my notes of where that is. There's a lot of in-between stuff about the Swedes and stuff like that. Page 207, if you're looking at question 9 on study guide 4. He gives his last thoughts about Beowulf. Weloff does. It says, Weloff, son of Weohstan, page 207, spoke. Often when one man follows his own will, many are hurt. This happened to us. Nothing we advised could ever convince the prince we loved, our land's guardian, not to vex the custodian of the gold. In other words, we couldn't convince him not to go and fight the dragon. So it just speaks to Beowulf's, feeling duty-bound to take care of his people, even if it means his own death. Let him lie where he was long accustomed, lurk there under the earth until the end of the world. We had wanted him to just leave the dragon alone, but he wanted to solve the problem. He held to his high destiny. The hoard is laid bare, but at a grave cost. In other words, we got the treasure, but the cost of it was Beowulf's life. It was too cruel a fate that forced the king to that encounter. I have been inside and seen everything amassed in the vault. He means the treasure vault of the dragon. I managed to enter, although no great welcome awaited me under the earth wall. I quickly gathered up, and then he goes on and talks about how he got the treasure and took it back to Beowulf before he died. 209, he continues. Now shall flame consume our leader in battle, the blaze darken round him who stood his ground in the steel hail, when the arrows storm-shot from bowstrings pelted the shield wall. The shaft hit home, feather-fledged, it finned the barb in flight. So I don't think that's particularly about Beowulf, though. So he's just praising him and saying, I wish that he had decided not to fight the dragon. We tried to get him to avoid that. But of course, being Beowulf, he wouldn't do that. Beowulf's speech is admiring Beowulf, but his rhetorical strategy is pathos. Sounds like a giant guilt trip. Yeah, that's the earlier question. Number 3. I think you're referring to number 3 on the study guide. Yeah, he does use pathos because he's trying to get the shirkers to come and help him fight. He uses guilt to do that, and emotion. So, yay, Wendy made it in. That's good. It's like a girl party today. It's all the girls tonight. Pajama party! Yeah, he uses pathos and he basically says, hey, this guy did everything for you. The reason you're alive is because of Beowulf. The least you can do is go and help him when he needs it. But it doesn't work. They still don't go and help him. Which is pretty bad. I guess dragons are scary. That's probably why. All right, we're on study guide section 4. Any other questions from section 4 or characters? I guess I should mention that I already said this a little bit, but if the character is at the top, they will definitely be on the test. But there are some characters that are mentioned also in the study questions. So there could be, girls just want to have fun. If you mean by fun, studying for Beowulf tests. So there will be some other characters besides the one at the top because they might come out here in the study guide questions. But I'm not going to put a character on there that's not in some way on the study guide. That's cruel and unusual punishment. There's like a little dot right there on my face on the screen. I had to get rid of it. It's driving me crazy. Oh, Eric feels so left out. Well, I didn't know you were there, Mr. Lurker Lurk. Question 5 from section 4. Okay, what causes Beowulf's death? Could it have been avoided? Beowulf dies because of the venom of the dragon. So if you want to flip back to the moment when he's fighting. So page, he prays there on 189 and tells them how he wants his funeral. Well, maybe it's a little bit before that. Yeah. Okay, so Beowulf's deadly wound is given to him on page 181. So the question is, what causes Beowulf's death? It's because the dragon bites him. Then the bane of that people, the fire-breathing dragon, was mad to attack for a 3rd time. When a chance came, he sought the hero in a rush of flame and clamped sharp fangs into his neck. Beowulf's body ran wet with his life blood. It came welling out. So the bite not only makes him bleed, because obviously he's got his arteries and stuff there, but also later on it says that it was a deadly poison. So the dragon also has venom that he injects into Beowulf. He doesn't die right away. It takes him a while to die, but it's as soon as he gets bitten by the dragon, it's a foregone conclusion. And then the second part of the question is, could it have been avoided? It probably could have been avoided if more men had helped Beowulf fight. Beowulf helps him, but he's the only one. None of the other men will help him, and if more of them had been helping, maybe they could have distracted him or done something and Beowulf could have made it out. But I don't really think Beowulf wants to make it out. I think he wants to die a hero, and this is his big chance. So, you know, it's kind of a macho thing, I guess. Arannus is the place just outside where the dragon's cave is, where the fight happens between Beowulf. 8:30. Where the fight happens between Beowulf and Beowulf and the dragon. Yeah, he does die there. Eric's right. Arannus is where the dragon is fought. Yep. You got it. You got it. Anything else from section 4? Want to do some more vocab? It's just that I have all these cards. I just feel like I should use them. Well, I'm waiting for the next question from section 4. After that, we'll talk about the article and the videos, and then that'll pretty much be it. So, vocab. This one should be easy because we talked about it. Oh, question 6. I don't like the lag on this. It's so long. Barrow is a burial mound, right? That comes up a lot in the end. Okay, Eric wants question 6. Question 6. What does the dragon's treasure symbolize? How does the symbol shift? Okay, well, to the dragon, the treasure symbolizes his, wealth, even though it's not really his. It's that guy, the Song of the Last Man. The Last Man's from some people. But to Beowulf, it symbolizes salvation for his people. Beowulf believes that in fighting the dragon and winning the treasure, his people will be able to use the treasure to defend themselves. He says that he hopes they will use it to pay off the Swedes, and he knows that the Swedes are going to attack. But that's not what they do. They take the treasure and they bury it with him because they don't have any other treasure, so they put it in his barrow. And so when the Swedes come, they don't have any way to pay them off, even if the Swedes would have taken money, which I don't know if they would have. So how could it, number 6, the symbol for his people is probably the treasure symbolizes salvation, but for Beowulf, but for the people it probably symbolizes a tribute to Beowulf because they put it in his barrow. So the idea is that a symbol can mean different things to different characters, or it can change over time. A symbol can mean one thing, like it means one thing to the guy who put it in there. It's a sad symbol of his lost people. To the dragon, it's like a lottery. To Beowulf, it's like a payoff. And to Beowulf's people, it's like a tribute. So over time, as it passes hands, it means different things to different characters. Anything else from section 4? Pillage. You know what pillage means? It's on page 155. I'm going to read you the sentence. Question 3, but from section 3. Back it up, back it up, back it up. Pillage is at the top of page 155. Pillage and slaughter have emptied the earth of entire peoples. Pillage is to rob and steal. Okay, back to section 3 for a brief detour. Question 3, section 3. When Beowulf recounts his battles to Hygelac, he is quite descriptive. Explain how, through his use of imagery, Beowulf brings the battle to life once again. Include the effects of this imagery on Hygelac, his court, and the reader. Okay, you have to go back to the very beginning of section 3 for that. Section 3 starts on page 131. So when Beowulf gets back to back to Geatland, he starts telling Hygelac about what happened when he was in Denmark. And he arrives and immediately goes to the king. There's that little description of Modthrith, and then on 135, after Hygelac had offered greetings to his loyal thane in lofty speech, Hyde comes and passes out the mead jug. They start drinking, and Hygelac asks him, "How did you fare on your foreign voyage?" Beowulf starts talking about his trip to Denmark on page 137. What happened, Lord Hygelac, is hardly a secret, that part right there. Any more among men in this world, myself and Grendel coming to grips, pun intended, on the very spot where he visited destruction on the victory shieldings and violated life and limb. So some of the imagery that he uses includes in the fight over on page, he does a little bit of digression. He talks about how Friwaru, the daughter of Hrothgar, is going to get married off to Ingeld the Swede, and they're a little worried about that. But then he gets back to the story. So it continues on page 141, Beowulf telling his story. But now, my lord, I shall carry on with my account of Grendel, the whole story of everything that happened. So then he says stuff like, after heaven's gem had gone mildly to earth, heaven's gem is the sun. So that's imagery and really a metaphor for describing the sun going down. So after the sun went down, that maddened spirit, the terror of those twilights, came to attack us where we stood guard. Talking about Grendel, still safe inside the hall. So there's the image of them inside the hall waiting for Grendel to show up. And then we find out the name of the guy that Grendel ate. One of Beowulf's men does not return from the battle or from the trip to Denmark because he's eaten, and his name is Halverson. Beowulf watches him get eaten. He's the first one. And then after that, Beowulf grabs Grendel's arm and is able to rip it off. So there's description there about how he ate up Halverson's body, which is pretty gruesome. He ate up the entire body. There was blood on his teeth, and he was bloated and furious, all roused up, yet still unready. So he's trying to talk about how disgusting the creature was and what he was doing and how he was out for blood, and blood was dripping from his teeth. The raging demon wanted to cram me and many others into his bag. So he talks about it. He could have just said, there was a monster, I killed it, it's dead, I ripped off its arm, then I took off its head. But instead he creates like a whole scenario and almost like an entertainment to describe how he defeated Grendel. And he says over and over again, I did it for you. I did it to credit you, my king. Which is sort of their duty. So the imagery there is gruesome. He goes on and he tells about how he did the same thing with Grendel's mother, how he went to find her in her disgusting den, and there's all that imagery. It goes on for maybe 10 pages. He also describes his treasure, which he has there with him to give to the king. Okay, anything else from either study guide before we move on and talk about the article and the videos? Anybody? Any questions there? You did. All right. You want to do the article next? There will be questions from the Halverson article on the test. I did this in the video on Tuesday, so I'll do it here too because it seems like more people from the B classes are there. I made a list on my... I'm just going to do this so that later you can freeze and screenshot it if you want to. I made a list of all of the... It's all backwards. All of the oppositions that I found in the article. And I'm sure you found some of them, but I've been through the article multiple times over the years, so I'll just put it right here, and later on you can go back and screenshot that if you want to. A good question on the written portion of the test for the article will be for me to give you one of these oppositions and then ask you, how does Halverson explain that opposition in the article? So there's all the ones that I found. I'm sure you found most of those. What else? You have a vocabulary list from the article, so I would probably ask questions from that. I would not ask you vocabulary questions that I didn't identify on the study guide for the article. I don't really like making lists because maybe you already know some of those words, or maybe there are other words that you don't know that are in the article that I didn't put on the list, so I don't really like making lists. I think it's better just to look up words that you don't know, but I did do that time to help you out, so anything that's on that vocab list is a possibility in the test. Looking at your article, are there any parts of the article that you want me to talk about? I think on the test, the questions will be formulated in a way that I'll take statements from the article and it's be like the true and false section. True or false, Halverson states something, and it'll either be true because I just lifted it right from the article, or it'll be false because I did the opposite thing. What does pathos mean in the article? I think you can find that on page No, I didn't number the pages. It's the one with the little inset box. It's the second to the last page, I think. So what does pathos mean in the article? Pathos is an appeal. So it's in the middle of that page. It says, the pathos of much Old English poetry, especially Beowulf, is based on themes of isolation, exile. So in this sense, pathos means appeal. Why does the story of Beowulf in Old English poetry appeal to us? It's because of the themes. The dissolution of social order, the prophecies, the reoccurring sense of yearning. Everything in that paragraph explains why people like to read the story of Beowulf. That's what pathos means there. Are there any other vocab words from that list that you want to talk about? Some of them are defined right in the article, so those are easier. One of the other things we were talking about on Tuesday night was that I had a timeline, and I did put this on the weblog for, if you're in B, it was yesterday, in all that study guide material. I put my timeline. It's got, I don't know, it's maybe like 5 pages long, and it's got all of the events in the order that they happen in the book with page numbers. So I don't know, that might be a good way to review events. I don't know. I put a link to it there just in case it's going to help you. Anybody can see that there on the weblog, even if they don't show up to the videos. I don't want these videos to be, you know, like a situation where you get an unfair advantage, you know, like little tips and tricks and things like that, because there'll be some people who, you know, for whatever reason are not able to watch the videos. But, you know, I do want to make it available so that we can go over things if people have questions. Oh, Pepper's asleep. You want to see Pepper? He's asleep by the door. I'm waiting for your next question about the article. Let me see if I can show you Pepper's over there. Oh, he's asleep, little baby. Right there. Oh. Oh, Pepper. He's not a cuddly cat, but he's usually right near wherever I am. It's like his little comfort zone. I like that. He's almost always right near me. I'm gonna plug it in. All right, so y'all telling me that you're okay with the article? I want a cat like Pepper. I don't know. I mean, I love him when I was awake. Why do you have a weird face? Are you okay? He's not snuggly. That's the one thing. You're only here for Pepper. Pepper's not gonna help you pass the test. I'm gonna help you pass the test. I don't know, can Pepper go on YouTube and make a video that helps you study? I don't think so. Par excellence. Par excellence is sort of, from the article, is on page... I don't have it highlighted. It's on page 3. Par excellence means the best of the best. Like, I had the most expensive dinner created by the chef par excellence, the best chef that there is. It's like bar none. Now he's having a bath. Okay, anything about the content of the article? We kind of went over it in class, but I do think that it would be good to know what each section is basically saying, like a summary. So to study that, you might go over a summary. You might look at the oppositions that I put on the screen earlier, and just think about how does the article discuss those. Coming up on 45 minutes. I'm going to put the article to the side. The last thing to talk about is the video series. So do you have your list of the topics that I gave you in the study guide for the videos? I'm pretty sure they're in order, in the order that the videos come out if you watch them 1 through 8. There will be more questions on the test tomorrow and Monday over the videos than there were the first time in section 2 because, loyalty to the individual, going back to the article. See, I don't like the lag on this. It's pretty long. It's like almost a minute, I think. So I'm like blabbing on about the next thing, and then there's like a message because I'm ahead by a little bit. Okay, so loyalty to the individual is the last section of the article. And in that section, Halverson talks about how in the Dark Ages, it's a heroic time, but it's a time of like heroic individuals. Most people weren't heroes, and the heroes that were able to make a name for themselves were sort of like moment in time. So he mentions people like Charlemagne, Alfred. Alfred was like the first king, real king in England. He was in charge of Wessex. So he talks about how these kings and these conquerors and people like that were able to make a difference in their society, but only for the time that they were alive. After they died, then that was it. It was just sort of like a flash moment, like Beowulf. Beowulf's able to help his people, but as soon as he dies, it's over. So loyalty to the individual is about how the individual was sort of in charge of that, and there were people who were loyal to those kings and helped them achieve their vision, but ultimately they were just one person. And we don't really have that nowadays. We don't have a situation where one person can change the entire society. I mean, I guess it could happen, but more often it's a movement or a group of people. Rational versus irrational. Okay, so the rational is the order, and the irrational is the chaos. And you can see that opposition. I'm looking for my notes where I saw that. Inside, outside, monsters. I'm thinking that you saw that on the list of things. I'm not finding where I put that, where I got that note. But the rational world is the human world, the indoor world. And the irrational world is Grendel's world, the wild world of robbery and depredations is the word at the top of the page there. The rational world makes sense to the humans. That's why they don't understand Grendel, because he's irrational. And that's why they can't defeat him also, because they can't figure out where he's coming from. I can't find the exact location of where my notes are on that one. Maybe some of these I figured out from what he was saying. Otherwise, like the article didn't specifically say that, but from what he was saying, I determined that. All right, let's move on to the movie stuff. I don't really want this to go much more than an hour because anybody sitting down to watch it later will be like, oh my God, 14 hours of study. Plus, I have to finish writing the test. Started it, and I still have a few more questions to do, so. And I don't want to miss my bedtime. I'll be cranky tomorrow. All right, so let's move on to the video notes. All right. Legacy of the Anglo-Saxons, Raphael wants to know. So the legacy of the Anglo-Saxons, is that the last, that's the last bullet, right? So according to my notes, the video says that the legacy of the Anglo-Saxons, in other words, what they handed down to civilization, is the spread of Christianity, because the Anglo-Saxons do eventually accept Christianity. At first they resist it, just like, anybody being converted, but then they do accept it and start to spread Christianity. The cathedrals, they had a way of building cathedrals that was unique to the time period, and so the video says that their architecture and building the cathedrals is something that was passed down through history. The enrichment of legend and folklore, well, Beowulf is an example of that, right? So their oral tradition is handed down, and they eventually, that becomes part of the culture, right? Other legacies of the Anglo-Saxons, according to the video, they helped create a varied literary heritage. Not only do we know about the indigenous people in England, but we also know about the migrants who came from Denmark and Geatland, the Vikings that came to live in England. and the origin of the English language. The Anglo-Saxon language is the progenitor, the beginning of the English language, a spoken language, and then ultimately it's written down and it sparks what we know now as English. We can trace it back. So what is that, like maybe 5 things that show the legacy of the Anglo-Saxons? What else? Anything else on the list from the video notes that you want me to fill you in? Look and see what you have notes on and what you feel like you have sketchy notes on when you're watching the videos. Or some people were saying that they had trouble understanding the guy that was talking. I think you're going to have to kind of get used to that. You're going to have professors that are from all over the world with all kinds of accents. You know, the Valley's kind of isolated and we get used to people who speak a certain way. I mean, I have more of a Midwest accent, but not everybody's going to talk like you in a melting pot place. So it's kind of good to get to know that. On videos, you can put on the closed captioning, and it will sometimes give you the, subtitles at the bottom. Anything else from the video notes? Anything else you want me to talk about? Because I have a whole list of everything that was on my list and what my notes are on those items. Because the test questions are going to come from my notes. So I would look through and see, are there any gaps in your notes from the videos? Do you want to do some more vocab while we're waiting? Let's do some more vocab while we're waiting. Okay. Scourge. I made all these vocab cards, you might as well use them. Scourge, page 155. I have to use that to describe the dragon. 155. For 3 centuries, this scourge of the people had stood guard on that stoutly protected underground treasury. Scourge is like a person or thing that causes great trouble. So they're talking about the dragon there. Okay, Wendy says, explanation of the value of the custom of Verzegeld. Verzegeld. That is somewhere near the middle, I think, of the list. Let me scan for it. Yeah, I guess it's toward the bottom, maybe the last 15 items. So the video says that, sorry, Pepper's clawing me. Verzegeld is the significance of the individual life as opposed to the group. So the idea that each individual life can be important more than the group, which the Anglo-Saxons probably did not always believe in. So that each injury or loss of life caused recompense to the family or victim. So Verzegeld is the idea that you would pay back a victim if you killed somebody, that you would owe them money for, okay, so it's sort of an ancient idea. Nowadays we would just put the person on trial and they would go to jail. But maybe 100 years ago and, back into history, if you killed somebody, you also had to repay the family because that person would have contributed to the family in one way or another. So either their salary, their money that they would have earned, that sort of thing. So Verzegeld is that custom of repaying the victim's family. That an individual life can be worth something. Good question. Wretched. Page 155. Then the vault was rifled, the ring hoard robbed, and the wretched man had his request granted. The wretched man is the one that was looking for the cup. Wretched means horrible. Yeah, kind of sad too, but mainly horrible. Like in a horrible situation or a horrible person. Want to do another one? Virulent. Page 157. Virulent. Far and near, the Yayat nation bore the brunt of his brutal assaults and virulent hate. They're talking about the dragon. Virulent means extremely severe or harmful. Mainly I'm thinking later on. You learned this word last year in Mr. Ramos's class? That's good. Was it on the ceiling? He has all those words up on the ceiling. Gloaming. Also page 157. Gloaming. So the guardian of the mound, the horde watcher, waited for the gloaming with fierce impatience. His pent-up fury at the loss of the vessel made him long to hit back and lash out in flames. Gloaming means the dusk in the evening. Oh no, wretched, okay. Yeah, wretched is a good word. You can use that nowadays. People know what it means. Anything else from the videos? I have my notes right here in case you have a question from the videos that you want me to talk about. There are some dates on there. Details about the composition of the Beowulf story. Is that from the list of the videos? Let me see. The videos do go through the story of Beowulf, but I think, you know, we're already studying the sections, so I'm looking for that one. I don't see that one on the list. Oh, I see it. It's toward the bottom. Details about the composition of the Beowulf story. Okay, so the video says that there's a Christian overtone because of the education of the monks who were writing it down, that they may have used specific heroes, and there's some historic evidence in the story. Some of the people that they mention may have been historically accurate people. Like Hrothgar was a real king. I think Finn was probably a real king. So the video says that there is some root in history for the story of Beowulf. We don't know if Beowulf actually existed, but that's what I have from the video. Anything else from this video study guide? Because that's the last major part of the test. The lag is real. Yeah, I know. I don't like that. I wonder, Mr. Kalunga was telling me that there's another way to do live video on Twitter using Periscope, but I don't know how to save the video afterwards. Like, YouTube does it automatically for you, so I don't know. Why drugs might have been used in Anglo-Saxon time. Well, drugs have been used like ever since people figured out drugs, you know, like even just psychotropic plants to alter their state. But what does the video say about that? Oh, it's right above the question about the details about the composition of Beowulf. So the video says that drugs might have been used during Anglo-Saxon times before battle, so they could feel superhuman and not feel pain. They could feel resolve to, you know, fight. Early religious practices. Drugs are used very often in religious practices. Smoking of sacred herbs and stuff. Possession of deities. The idea that a god could come and possess your body and you would feel special or in some way inhabited by a god. And visualizing animals. That's what I got from the video. So before battle, for superhuman resolve, early religious practices, possession by deities, and visualizing animals. That's what the video says about why drugs might have been used in Anglo-Saxon times. Just say no, kids. But the Anglo-Saxons did it. True enough. Today I'm eating raisins and stuff because I should be a good example of things not candy, but typically my snacks are candy. Hugs, not drugs. Yeah. Next week is Red Ribbon Week. Okay, it's about an hour. I'm getting ready to wrap it up. See? Cuckoo clock. We have a cuckoo clock because it's a family tradition. You want to see it? The holy bush. Are you talking about the drugs? I have a whole bunch more vocab cards. I don't know how to show them to you. I guess I did a bunch. If you want to come early tomorrow, you could go through the. I'll have the cards at school. You can go through them if you want. Oh, LMBO instead of LMAO. Give us more vocabs? Okay, you can do that. Where did I leave off? Scourge, Wretch, Virulent was the last one. I did like maybe a third of them. All right, so the next one is Gloaming. Oh, I did that one. That's the last one I did. The next one is Reconnoiter on page 163. Reconnoiter, the sentence goes like this on page 163. The Lord of the Geats took 11 comrades and went in a rage to reconnoiter because of the dragon. Reconnoiter is like a military survey. They're going to go and check things out. In military talk, it's recon. I don't know. If you play video games, maybe they call it recon, but it's short for reconnoiter. To go out and check up on something in a military way. The next word is coffered. Coffered on page 165. His fate hovered near, unknowable but certain. It would soon claim his coffered soul. Coffered means trapped or enclosed, like a coffin, right? How is your soul trapped? Well, it's trapped in your body, right? The next word is hearthstone. Page 167. He gazes sorrowfully at his son's dwelling, the banquet hall bereft of all delight, the windswept hearthstone, the horsemen are sleeping. This is where they're talking about the grief of Rethel when his son dies. Hearthstone is that flat stone in front of a fireplace so that if sparks leap out, they'll just die there on the stone instead of igniting something. A hearth is a fireplace. The next word is parlay. It's on page 173. The horde guard recognized a human voice. The time was over for peace and parlaying. Parlay is a conference that's used in a dispute when the two sides want to come together to make peace. So it's saying that the time was over for the, conferencing. The dragon and Beowulf both want to fight. They don't want to come to an agreement. Do a few more. The next one is bequeath, page 177. I'm reading the sentences because that's how it'll be on the test, right? Then in old age, at the end of his days among the weather Geats, he bequeathed to Beowulf innumerable weapons. So as he's dying, he gives a bunch of stuff to Beowulf. Bequeath means to give somebody something like in a will, to give it to them as a remembrance of you. Bequeath. Thank you for the live streams. You're going to heaven. Maybe. Let's hope so. Reek. Noun. Page 179. Then he waited the dangerous reek and went under arms to his lord. Reek can mean something smelly, but the way it's used here is smoke, because the dragon is billowing smoke as the fire is coming out of him. I'll do a couple more, 2 more, even though that doesn't get you to the end of the book. I will bring these cards in case you want to run through them and practice them before the test tomorrow if you come a little early. Separate. Separate. On page 183. Then the wound dealt by the ground burner earlier began to scald and swell. It's the wound on Beowulf from the dragon. Beowulf discovered deadly poison suppurating inside him, surges of nausea, and so in his wisdom the prince realized his state and struggled toward a seat on the rampart. So as Beowulf, as the poison is coming in him, suppurate means to fester or create pus. The venom is reacting to his body and he's unable to continue. Let's do one more, and then that'll be it for tonight. The last vocab word is fomented. This is not the last of the vocabulary words, it's just the last one that we'll do tonight. Fomented is on page 185. I didn't circle it. I took what came, cared for and stood by things in my keeping, never fomented quarrels, never swore to a lie. This is Beowulf in his last words when he's thinking back over his life. To foment means to start something, to instigate. So he says, I responded to quarrels, but I never started any quarrels. So I guess that makes him a great man. All right. Any last minute questions before I go ahead and sign off for this study session? It's a long one, but I think we got a lot done. Last call for questions. Okay, I'm going to call it a night then, and if you want to come early to school tomorrow, I have a couple of conferences, but I will have my vocab cards there if you want to study those. Or if you have any questions, last minute things, I will answer them for you, and other than that, I will see you tomorrow for the test, if you're a B-Day person. Good night, everybody.